So this is who we were, and we have to be like this, because the world today needs us to create culture. Culture is being destroyed today. Today we have the global monoculture. The global monoculture, which is actually not a culture at all. But one of the things I wanted to say, talking about that hadith, is look at your beautiful selves. Is anyone in this room dressed the same? Anybody dressed like me? Anybody dressed like our dear brother or our dear sheikh or like this woman or that woman? We're all dressed differently, aren't we? Of course, we're all Muslims, and I could tell by looking at you. But today we live in the technological society, which is a mass society, which cultivates individualism, but of a very special type that makes the people masses. So you don't really have cultural identities like we had in the past. And that's why the way we dress today, it usually doesn't carry much of a message if we dress like the other people, is what I mean to say. I mean, you have a special hat, you have a special scarf. But in traditional societies, it wasn't like that. In traditional societies, and I saw some of these. I went to Europe when I was 15, which most of you weren't even thinking about being born at that time. It was a long time ago. And when I went to Europe at that time, villages still had distinctive dress. So I went to the Black Forest, and there the women wear black, white, and red, and they have red balls on their hats. And the men wear special leather pants that come to their knees, and they wear white socks. I thought that was really cool. And they had suspenders and so forth. And in the same village, they all dressed the same. In the next village, almost the same, but different. So you can tell he's from that village, she's from that village. That's usually the way traditional peoples were. And also they had different classes. And traditional Islamic society was like that as well. We had many types of dress, not one, but it told me, are you a Turk? Are you a Kurd? Are you a Pashtun? Are you a Punjabi? So we had different types, but they all fit into particular modes. But for this reason also, when we say man tashabbaha biqawm, that's in the context of societies in which dress is distinctively cultural. Dress is uniform in certain groups. And if you dress like that, then you are identifying with that group. This is not so much the case today, but we'll talk about that later if you want to. I hope to have time for questions, and I probably won't. I'm very bad about time. The Prophet ﷺ taught us to respect different cultures. And I want to give you the example of the sons of Arfida, Banu Arfida. And these are hadith in Bukhari and Muslim and other sources. And Banu Arfida, the sons or children of Arfida, is a very polite way. Assalamu alaikum, how are you? MashaAllah, barakallahu feek. Do you want to take the podium? Okay, hafadhakum Allah. So Banu Arfida is a very polite way. Our dear brother Yusuf has honored us. Now I'm nervous. I don't know if I can continue. But I've been upstaged. I hope he'll permit me to continue. But Banu Arfida is a very beautiful way of saying Ethiopians. So these were Ethiopians, and they were Ethiopians who had become Muslims in the wake of the first hijrah, which, as you know, was to Ethiopia, to Abyssinia. And then when Ja'far al-Tayyar came to Medina, they came with him. And they loved the Prophet. And they loved Islam, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And they loved Islam. And after fasting a glorious month of Ramadan, can you imagine what that would have been like? Fasting with the Prophet in his mosque. Then when Eid came, they could not contain themselves. So they got out their drums, and they got out their swords, and they got out their spears. And in the mosque, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, they began to dance and sing and beat their drums. And do spear dances and sword dances. And the great Faruq, whom I love and you love, he didn't like that. That wasn't his culture. And he tried to stop them. And he's quite capable of that. He was a big man and a strong man. And they were intimidated by him. And anyway, they want to do what's right. And the Prophet ﷺ intervened and he said, play your games, O sons of Arfida. He called them that. He's the one who called them that, a title of respect. And in one transmission, he says, play your games so that the Jews and Christians know that there is ampleness in our religion. We're not rigid. So they continued to dance in the mosque. And he brought our beloved mother, Aisha, and put her on his shoulders so that she could watch. And she watched and watched until she was so tired. And then he let her go. She went back. So this is very important, isn't it? You don't have to have a commentary. But one of the things it means is that Africans will remain Africans. Because they become Muslims does not mean they have to become Arabs. They will be respected as Africans, and their culture will be respected. And again, this is the way that we would be as we went through the world. I want to give you another hadith, which is in Muslim. It's a hadith athar. It's a hadith from the Blessed Prophet ﷺ, and then also an athar, meaning it's a statement from a companion. And this is that Amr ibn al-As, who is fighting the Byzantines, who are no joke. That was our toughest enemy, the Romans, organized, the Greeks, the Byzantines. They know how to fight, and they know how to organize. And of course, he's defeating them. And he's a great commander with Khalid. And Al-Mustawrid al-Qurashi, who is a companion, comes and tells him that the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that your enemy, the Rum, we can say Europeans if you like, will be most of mankind at the end of time. And Amr said, did the Prophet tell you that? He said, yes. He said, did he tell you that? Yes. And then what's his response? His response, this is in Muslim. If then you have related this honestly, know that they have 4 excellent qualities. Isn't that amazing? And my teacher, Khaldun al-Ahdab, who's one of the great muhaddiths of our time, he told me, he said, this is what the Prophet taught them. Look at what's good in people. See what their good qualities are. That's what this principle is. But he said, know that they have 4 excellent qualities. They are the most forbearing of people in times of discord. When there's trouble, they become calm. Many of us go crazy. They don't do that usually. They are the quickest of people to recover from calamity. And that's connected with the first. They are the most likely of people to renew an attack after retreat. So be careful. They will retreat, but they will be back tomorrow. They're not going to run away. Their retreat will be strategic or necessary, but they're coming back. And we had that experience with them for centuries. And then he said, and they are the best of people towards the poor, the orphan, and the weak. And then he stopped and thought, Amr, God be pleased with him. And he said, they have a 5th quality that is both beautiful and excellent. Look at this. This is not a person who's culturally predatory, is it? And these are his enemies in a life and death struggle, which he should be the loser in, although he won. He said they have a 5th quality, which is both beautiful and excellent. They are the best of people in checking the tyranny of kings. Wow. And this is the way you speak of your enemy? And look at the way that we in the West, if I can use the word we, talk about our enemies. We tend to dehumanize them. We turned the Japanese in World War II into apes. And we turned the Germans into Huns. And they did the same to us. We dehumanize them. But he's not dehumanizing at all, is he? He's humanizing them. So this is part of the teaching of the Prophet. Now, let's now go through the slides. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Who's been there? I've been there. Any of you? The Kremlin. What is that funky building? Wow. Disneyland. It's better than Disneyland. It looks like a mosque. And it is the remnants of a mosque. And that mosque was a Tatar mosque, because the Tatars of the Golden Horde, they ruled the Volga River for 300 years. And Ivan the Terrible, who establishes the Russian Empire, destroys them. And in fact, he forces them to become Christians. And he destroys their jami' mosques. But this one was from Kazan. I visited Kazan. And I wish we had more time. And he said that this one we won't destroy. We will take it apart. And we will move it by ox cart to Moscow. And then I will ask Tatar architects, not Russians, Tatars, to build me a basilica from these tiles and bricks. So here you get the only example that we have of a Tatar jami'. We know what their little mosques look like, but we don't know what their jami'as look like. And I wanted to show this to you because of the fact that these brilliant Tatars are able to capture what I would like to call the Russian soul. That they make something that is so beautiful in Russian eyes and in the Russian hearts that Ivan the Terrible, who's destroyed everything, says, this one I can't destroy. This one's got to be mine. So it becomes the logo of Russia. Isn't that amazing? I will take just a minute, if you'll allow me. I went to Kazan, and I met a young imam there, Tatar. We spoke in Arabic. And I said to him, is it true that St. Basil's in the Kremlin is made from the remnants of your Jami' mosque on this spot in the Kazan? And he said, we don't like to talk about that. And I know it's true. Abdul Hakim Winter's is the one who told me. And I said, why don't you like to talk about it? And he said, we want the Russian soul. We don't want our bricks and our tiles. And I said, you just taught me one of the biggest lessons of my life. Because we don't want revenge. We're not going to cry about the mosque. It was just rocks and stone and tiles. But he said, we want the Russian people. We want their hearts. And they need Islam because they have alcoholism and drug addiction way beyond the norm in many countries today. Let's take the next one. What is this beautiful city? Athens, right? And that, as you know, is the Parthenon. Why in the world will we put the Parthenon there? Because the Ottoman Turks ruled Greece for hundreds of years. And Greece under the Ottomans was 50% Muslim, just as Anatolia was 50% Christian. Wasn't like Turkey today. Most of the Ottoman Empire was in Bulgaria, which was 80% Muslim. But in Athens, this was their Jami' mosque. And you can't tell that now. In the Greek War of Independence, unfortunately, the Greek revolutionaries blew it up. We won't go into the details of the story. But it was intact under the Ottomans, and they had made it a mosque, but they made it a mosque in a very discreet way so as not to offend the architecture. And again, the Ottomans had a beautiful relationship with the Greek Orthodox Church. This is well known. And this continued throughout the Ottoman period. But the Greek Orthodox Church did not want this temple because they weren't proud of it, because it was pagan. And they were very sensitive about the pagan past. So they had their own churches. And so the Ottomans basically say, could we buy that? Can we take that and use it? And they didn't have any issue with that. So again, this then shows the Greeks that we respect you. We respect your architecture. We respect your ethics of beauty. And this is the kind of people that we were historically. Let's take the next slide. I think we're going to have to go fast. I'm so sorry. But this is taking you to China. I know that a lot of you have been to Muslim China, haven't you? I've been there 3 times. I love it. And there are Muslims everywhere in China, everywhere. And of course you have Turkestan or Xinjiang, which has Turks in it, the Uyghurs, who are also a beautiful people, but they're not Chinese. Whereas the Chinese Muslims are Chinese. They speak the Chinese languages and dialects. And again, and they've been there for how long? 1,400 years. Usually serving the emperor, serving in the army, serving in the Ministry of Finance, and so forth. They were brought to China by the emperor, in fact. He brought whole armies in the Abbasid period and in later periods. And it's a very interesting story. And he is the one who says, build the mosque. And you can use my colors. These are royal colors. These are royal designs. And they don't mean much to me or to you. But to the Chinese, they mean, don't touch this place because it is the emperor's. You steal anything here, you're in trouble. You break any windows, you're in trouble. And that's the way it was in China. Let's keep going. Again, we'll have to go quickly. Let's keep going. This is a minaret. Not very tall, is it? But that's because this is in Xi'an, beautiful city. But the Chinese didn't like tall buildings, especially in the central Confucian areas. So they didn't build their minaret very tall. If you go to the Tibetan regions, then they will build a tall minaret. It's different there. But here they build a nice minaret that serves their purpose. And again, you see the 3 ideograms there on the plaque. So also they had a problem with how do you say Islam? Because it's hard for them to pronounce. They say Yi-si-lan. Yi-si-lan. And then they can write that phonetically and they get like fragrance of orchids or something like that, which is not bad. Doesn't say Donald Duck, for example. But then they felt that, again, with the Chinese, they don't accept aliens very well. And so they didn't want to be seen as aliens in China. And Yisilan is hard to pronounce. So they said, we will call our religion Islam among ourselves. But among ourselves and with the Chinese, we will call it Qing Zhen Jiao, which means the religion of the pure. Because we make wudu. We like to have clean food. We like to clean our houses. We like purity. And the real. The real. And that makes the Chinese pay attention. It's like, oh, you are. Because so was Confucius, so was Lao Tzu, so was the Yellow Emperor who lived 5,000 years ago. What is your religion? You do belong here. And the Chinese Muslims understood that very well. They would even say that when we came to China, we found that the religion of the Yellow Emperor, who may have been a prophet, but he was a beautiful figure, he lived over 5,000 years ago, was still not completely gone. And so it's like we plugged into it. Keep going. You notice also the gardens. Keep going. Sorry that we have to go so fast. Again, they can't, you think they just paint this red because they want to? No, those are royal colors. You have to have permission. Even, in fact, the Chinese would build women's mosques. They're Hanafis. So they were pretty strict about women, but they said if the women are not educated, they don't have guides, what are we going to do? So they would build women's mosques. I've prayed in them with their permission. They don't lead the Jumu'ah prayer, but they are there. They have sheikhas. This gives the women a lot of power. But the women's mosque will be made of wood, beautiful wood, carved, but it won't be painted. And that's because the emperor doesn't like that. Like the women's mosque, I'll let you build it, but it'll have to be of wood. And actually, they're very beautiful. I wish I had a picture, but I don't. Keep going. Again, you saw the gardens. Here's another picture of the gardens. And these gardens are from the Chinese tradition. And they are gardens designed to take distress from your heart, to take anxiety out of your heart, so that when you walk into the mosque, you're ready to pray. And you don't want to leave. And I and the other people that have gone with me to China, you don't want to leave. You want to stay in that mosque forever. And that's the sign of a good mosque. Let's keep going. Again, let's keep going. Now we've come to southern China. So before we were in northeastern China. And in southern China, that's when you cross or approach the Yellow River. And so this is near Shanghai. And this is one of the most beautiful mosques I have ever been in. And you notice the colors are different, the woodwork is different, everything else. It's still with the emperor's permission, but it's a different type of cultural expression, fitting the south of China. Keep going. And you had more Muslims in the south than you had in the north. Keep going. Now this is the outside of the same mosque, white and black, and you can't tell it, but there is a symbolic dragon that's on the wall and goes all the way around the mosque. Why would you put a dragon on your wall? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You do it because the emperor told you to do it. That's why. Because that's his dragon. And again, he's saying, don't touch this mosque. Don't climb this wall. Don't steal anything from here. Because I am the protector of this mosque. And this is beautiful. The emperor has protected Islam in China for hundreds of years. And if we had time, we could talk about some of the trouble that Muslims faced, especially in the 19th and 20th century, but we won't get into that now. Keep going. That's because of the weakness of the emperors. Keep going. This is the same mosque. You see how the Arabic is written? So the Chinese know Arabic quite well. They don't necessarily pronounce it in a way that I can understand. But they read it very well. Just like in some of your madrasas in the subcontinent, they may not pronounce Arabic the way that we would like them to, but they know what it means, right? And that's what counts. But here they take the Arabic script and they develop it in a way that suits the Chinese pen or the Chinese brush. Let's keep going. So here you have another example. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The calligrapher will do that with 2 strokes. Like that. And then you see the Chinese calligraphy, because calligraphy is a big art in China. So in the calligraphy, he's going to tell you what this is all about. What does it mean? Let's keep going. Is that Arabic or Chinese? Hard to tell, isn't it? It's Arabic. And it is the 99 names of God. But again, written in a type of Arabic that looks like Chinese. And it's written from top to bottom. And it's written on the side. Keep going. Now we want to go quickly through Indonesia and Malaysia. This, as you may know, is a prototype of the first mosques in Indonesia and Malaysia. And we call it a sacred mountain. Let's go to the next slide. Here you have maybe a better example. Sacred mountain means it's got 4 main pillars. And then you have a number of roofs, usually 3. Here you have more. And you usually have openings at the junctures of all the roofs because it's very humid there. And this will allow for airflow. But again, this is taking from the sacred symbols of Java and of Indonesia. And it's not the same as their temples, but it respects what they had. Let's keep going. More examples. That's a good example of a sacred mountain. And keep going. This is a really good example. These are the old mosques. And then what in the world is that? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. A drum? What's the drum doing outside the mosque? And that's because Java and Indonesia, Malaysia, is usually thick in forests. And if you know about jungles, The sound of the human voice, it doesn't carry very far. You can scream in the jungle and you won't be heard. And you can call the adhan and you won't be heard as far as you would elsewhere. But drums are heard, boom, boom, and they have drum language. So they can beat certain beats that say, come and gather, come and pray, there is danger, and so forth. So these are talking drums. And they put these drums outside their mosques so that they would call the adhan, that's the sunnah, but then they would also beat the drum because the people will hear that. Just like today we use microphones, don't we? And that's something new. That's also cultural imperative. Okay, let's keep going. This is a pool of water. You want to walk into the mosque? You may have been through these pools. I have. You have to take off your socks, take off your shoes, and you have to walk in the water. Why in the world would they do that? Well, because one of the great accomplishments of Islam in Indonesia was that Islam spread in a rice paddy civilization, an agrarian civilization based on rice. And the peasant, male or female, when they are farming in the wet paddies, they get muddy feet. And when they come to the mosque, they've got muddy feet. And so how are you going to keep the mosque clean? You're going to have somebody there with a stick saying, wash your feet again. You so-and-so, your feet are still dirty, go back and wash them again. He won't come back to the mosque, will he? So when you go to make wudu, you have to go through a water pool. That takes off a lot of mud. When you make wudu, that takes off even more. When you walk back, it takes off even more. When you go into the mosque, your feet are clean. And they don't have rugs in their mosque either, usually, because it's too humid. Rugs are not nice. They get moldy, and they get nasty little insects in them. So they have marble floors. You can bring your own rug if you want, but then the marble floor will stay clean. So this is, again, a cultural innovation, which is hasan, which is good. And it's taken from that environment. Please keep going. Again, how did Islam spread in Java? And I know that some of you may be from Java. In Cape Town, a lot of them are from Java. And Java, I love Java. The 9 saints of Java, they were incredible. But Kali Jaga, who is one of the greatest, he's one of my favorite. And I know one of his descendants. Her name is Shanti. I know her, she's a friend of mine. But Kali Jaga, he is the great spreader of Islam. And how did he do it? Puppets. Puppets. When you know, and again, puppet shows for the Indonesian people, and especially the peasants. And in fact, he taught the Indonesian peasants how to farm rice better, so they would get a bigger yield and it would take less time. And he was an aristocrat. You know, and yet he would get in the paddies with them to show them how to farm. They loved him. And then he would tell stories through his puppets. And a lot of those stories are fiction. Don't be upset. So he has stories about Hamza and Krishna, and the encounter between Vishnu and Yusuf. And did you ever hear that story? Did you read that in the Quran? No, but they use this, you see, to talk about Islam and Hinduism or Buddhism, because those were the religions that were strong there, and then to give victory to Islam. And it's interesting because in talking about Shivite Hinduism, which was the dominant form, or in the special Buddhism of Java, they knew how the people worshipped, and they knew what in their worship was similar to what we do, and what of their religious experiences were similar to our own. So they focused on that, and they focused on the music of the Quran and the beauty of the Quran. And then there are other things in Shivite Hinduism and in Buddhism that are very distant from us. So they didn't even talk about that. You could say they damned with faint praise, but that wouldn't be nice to say that. But so they're not conflictive. But it's just like, look what's good in you. And we've got it too. Come to us. Let's keep going. And they did incredible things. We don't have time to talk about it. That's a whole class in itself. But in any case, with these puppets, there's another one of the 9 saints. His name is Sunangiri. And he was very Sharia-minded. And he told Sunan Kali Jagat, you can't make puppets. And so he said, because he was using Malay puppets, which are kind of fat. And then he said, okay. And he went back to the drawing board and he invented the Javanese puppet with those thin arms, you see, thin necks. He said, do you think these could ever live? Are they like anything God created? Spider people? And so I said, okay. And this is how they spread Islam in Java and in other islands of Indonesia and in Malaysia. Not a drop of blood spilled. Not a single drop. And they made Islam beloved to the people. Let's keep going. Again, keep going. Now we come to Thailand. We'll just go quickly. Thailand is similar but different. Keep going. Again, you've got the sacred temple. This is a village which one of our brothers went to. This is their mosque. They're poor people. This mosque, keep going up, is about 300 years old and made from bamboo. Of course, they're poor people, and you can see that it needs some repairs. But again, it's made from bamboo. It's good for the humidity. It suits the environment. Keep going. This is their village. They're poor people, but beautiful people. And keep going. This is their sheikh of the village. That's our brother who took the pictures, a good friend of mine. Keep going. Now we come to India. Are we out of time? Don't say yes. Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. We'll go quickly. Keep going. Okay, so this is a model of the mosques that were first built in Kerala, in western India, which is a beautiful part of India. And again, they are sacred temples also. They're sacred mountains also. But they're built in such a way that they're perfectly matched for Kerala, which has so much rain. You can't even, the rice won't even mature in the paddies. You've got to cut the rice before it's ready to harvest, and you've got to boil it to eat it. There's just too much rain. It will never ripen. And of course, you have lots of snakes there as well. So these mosques are built in such a way that snakes, who are sometimes very good climbers, they can't get in. And, you know, the mimbars, I wish I had a picture. The mimbars are so beautiful. They're a lot like the mimbars you have in India in general and in many of your mosques, but they're decorated with ostrich eggs. And you know how beautiful the ostrich egg is. You're Africans. And where did they get them? From East Africa, from the trade, right? Keep going. Again, the Taj Mahal, sorry that we're going so quickly. Again, the point here is that the architecture of the Mughals, whatever you think of them, was so brilliantly done.